Are you referring to alchemy?
I think you are. I think Beyonce is.
Welcome to the Rage Quit Wire. I'm going to share this with the listeners. It's been a giant shit show today. I'm about to rage quit this motherfucking podcast.
Hey, but we got a new player in our meta, so that's a good thing.
My God. So, just kind of looking behind the curtains, folks. Had a rough time with the technology tonight. It hasn't been cooperating. Luckily, our very special guest has been working with us very patiently. And he's given us kind of the hookup, making sure the audio is not shit. Because it has been. I'm about to punch
I wish you had the Midas touch with technology, because
I usually do.
that's your job, not this guy's job.
I know. So the technology has been, and I'm going to share this because it might as well be a fucking rage quit at this point. So technology just shit the bed tonight. Like, we did this recording. We had this awesome interview with our guest. So we had this. We were going through the interview. It was fucking awesome. And then we find out it fucking cut off like halfway. So then we're like, hey, Vince, we got some questions. We want to blah, 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 get you back on. Let's get the last set of questions. And then all of a sudden, it shits the bed again. But luckily, Vince got the Audacity file on his end. So my shitty computer won't have to get thrown into the fucking dumpster. So, just
that computer might still need to be thrown into the dumpster.
Something, man. Anyways, as far as just never mind. I'm done. I'm getting fired up.
Okay, well, here's the deal. Well, we'll get to that interview in a second. There are some things that are kind of a big deal that Steamforge just recently released.
Got some news.
And so, let's get some thoughts on these. First of all, yesterday we got a preview of the 2 PVC boxes, 12-man boxes of, let's call them reprints of the...
Resculpts, some
resculpts, but I mean mostly that they're going to be produced in PVC.
Yeah. For
the fishermen and the butchers. And we've talked about these a little bit in the past, so we won't really rehash. I do like that they fixed a few of the flawed models that are easily prone to breaking.
Yep.
And people have been talking about how do they go about doing this. Now they're trying to work out a system. So tell us about what we received today.
Yeah, so what they ended up doing is, and this was something that initially it upset me just because they basically were like, we're going to do a Kickstarter, but not through Kickstarter. What's the third, what's that company called that they're putting it through?
Indiegogo.
So they're like, we're going to put it on Indiegogo. And I was like, well, this is great. You're going to cut out, the retailers. But what they're going to do is they're basically capping it at 800. And they said the reason they're doing that is because they want to cover their costs. And then once the cost is covered, then they're going to go ahead and basically let stores order it and they can make money through it. But they wanted to make, I think this is a way of them just covering their ass to make sure that, what they say, $80,000 they spend on each guild, they actually get their money back, and then they start putting it in the store.
To get it totally put into production and all that. The big concern that they have is that there will be a bunch of people that responded to their survey and they're not actually going to buy it. These 12-man boxes, they're going to cost $100 each.
Yeah.
And so, which makes sense, right? The 6-man boxes of farmers and blacksmiths each cost $50 each. So I understand why that price point is going to be there. You know what the thing is that actually I was looking at the comments.
Yeah.
And there is an endless stream on the internet of people that are just going to bitch no matter what.
Why? What are they bitching about?
They're just bitching about that, whether it's that Steamforge should use this system or that system, or that they should be prepared in this way or that way, or that they should know their market in this fashion or that fashion. It's just, no matter what you do, people are just going to bitch. And so props to Steamforge. They're trying to create a great new product and a repackaging of a product that's going to hopefully make the production more viable into the future for a long time. And I think they're trying to do it the best way they can, especially as a small business that doesn't have endless capital. And so, good for them. They've never screwed up in a fashion that I think is detrimental to the community. And so, and I think that they're learning from their previous experiences. So, thank you. and all those people that are bitching on the internet, you can go ahead and shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know why they... I just don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, you got to look at it from their perspective, because I think that a lot of people, like we said, they're going to be people that they say they're going to buy it and then they don't. And Steamforged doesn't want to be stuck with the bill. They don't want to put all this money into production and then they don't even break even. So I can understand it, and I appreciate them doing that and then saying, okay, once we break even, then we'll open it up to the retailers. That way we can put it into stores because we've already made our money back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, once they explained it, I definitely appreciated what they were doing more.
Yeah, I think that the choices they're making make the game more viable going into the future and ensure success. Because what I don't want them to do is to drop $80,000 into these new boxes and then have nobody buy them and it end up hurting the output of future minor guilds or whatever else it might be. I want to ensure that things move forward.
Yeah, and
I'm sure they do too.
And the other news that kind of dropped, and I'd say it's more official news, but people already kind of knew about it, was the Rat Catchers Guild. They also dropped some news the last couple of days here about that. The Rat Catchers Guild, they kind of put out some more information. They definitely put out what the disease condition is going to be. So the disease condition, for those of you that haven't seen it yet, basically if you have some kind of condition on you, so that's disease condition, snared, bleeding, whatever.
So this is a new condition that exists only within the Rat Catchers.
Correct. And apparently there's only going to be 2 models that have it. So if you don't like the disease, mechanic, then you can just not bring those 2 models and bring Graves and Bonesaw instead. But the condition is basically, I think it does 1 damage, if I remember correct, like during the maintenance phase. And then basically the big part of it is you cannot clear conditions unless you want to pay 1 extra. And it spreads to your models. So if you were, I think I'd have to look at it.
Yeah, it's going to suck for any models that have to bunch up.
So farmers,
brewers, butchers, vet rageless. I did like the fact that they were saying that they're releasing those limited edition models in the organized play pack that is coming out for those rat catchers.
So I didn't read this part, but I didn't read it closely, I should say. But it said when a model suffering the disease condition ends in activation, all models within 2 inches suffer the disease condition. I'm just looking at that, and I'm just like, so you could potentially, I don't know if you can do this yet or not, but you can put disease on your own models as the rat catcher, run up into somebody, and just give disease to everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure people will use it like this.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm sure that there'll probably be rat catchers that get some sort of a benefit by where they don't suffer the conditions of the disease, or get a benefit if
have
they
you seen that
someone
hulking model, the one where he's all festered and stuff? That dude probably does extra damage when he's hitting a diseased model or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured would happen. Okay, that's
yeah, and you got to spend 1 extra momentum for it. They also,
it's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and it's just going to be interesting because I don't think they have a release date yet for them, but they're definitely going to slowly start kind of giving us maybe some fluff and maybe some rules for these new models. It's exciting to have this first minor guild coming out because it's going to set the pace for the other minor guilds.
The only thing that I kind of wonder about is if every minor guild is going to start getting these special rules. I'm worried that it's going to be
too much.
Yeah. And so far, I guess it hasn't been crazy. The blacksmiths have some different tools, but they didn't get a new rule.
Yeah,
whereas the farmers did get a new rule with the harvest markers.
I don't think they're going to do a new. I don't think you're going to see this with every minor guild. I don't think you're going to see a whole new rule just invented for them. Well, I guess I can't say that. I could see them doing something for each guild now that I think about the falconers and what they potentially can do with these birds and stuff. Yeah, it's just one of those things where I guess they could, but I don't know if that'd be wise to do that.
Yeah, I just hope that it's not too much stuff, right?
Yeah, they're not jumping the shark with it.
Yeah. You've got a Kickstarter that you're kind of interested in.
I am. So Broken Toad Games is basically doing a kickstart, and I think it starts February 1st. And the kickstart is for goals. So if you're one of those people where you like kind of unique, interesting looking goals, they're actually doing a goal for each guild. So if you go on to Broken Toad Games, you can actually, either on their Facebook or on their website, you can see the Kickstarter goals that they're going to be coming out with. And I like the way that a lot of these look, especially a lot of like the fisherman one looks cool. The hunter one looks cool. So
I like those pigs in the storefront that the butchers get.
Yeah, so I know you've been looking for a good Butcher Guild goal, so that would be cool to get.
Yeah, because otherwise I have to go buy the pig miniatures from Weird, from Malifaux, and go create my own pigs hanging in a butcher shop. So I thank you, Broken Toad, for making these for me.
Yeah, and I like how they're kind of expanding and starting to put some stuff out for Guild Ball more and more. And they must have been doing pretty well with those busts because they keep expanding into Guild Ball with all these new minis.
Yeah, they've definitely put out some real cool collectors type things.
Just kind of looking at like tournaments, the Bourbon Trail Open starting to get more and more information out. So if you're interested in that, check out their Facebook page. Old Jake's, how's that tournament? We're still filling up with that. I think we're up to somewhere around 35, 36 people. If you're looking for Spring Fling, I guess you're just kind of SOL because that's sold out. You can get on the waiting list, though, because people do turn out not to go to those things. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt to get on the waiting list.
And I think that if somebody isn't on that waiting list by now, they're going to have some trouble. They might just, like, if you're looking at how to arrange your travel time and expenses, I would say that at this point, go book for the Old Jake's tournament, go book for Bourbon Trail Open, Adepticon, whatever it is, because I doubt you're going to get one of those spots. It's been weeks, and they're filled up super fast.
Some other news for the podcast is just we're starting to expand a little bit. We're kind of looking a little beyond Guild Ball, even though that's our primary game right now. So we actually got some really cool interviews kind of lined up, some Guild Ball, some not. One big interview we're going to do is with Longshanks. We're going to kind of talk to the creator of that, hopefully within the next week or so. We're also going to...
So for those of you that have questions about how that system works, hopefully we're going to be able to provide you with all of those answers and give you a step-by-step walkthrough of how to use that program, how to organize tournaments with it, etc.
Yeah, we also are looking to expand into having some conversations with some national powerhouses when it comes to games like Infinity. There's a big kind of resurgence of that in our meta, and I think there's a lot of listeners who'd be interested in hearing how that game works and kind of why it's such a successful game. And we're also going to get into War Machine a little bit because we have some of Chris's friends and some of my friends that are trying to convince us to come back home to War Machine.
Yeah, War Machine is... we stepped away from it. There were a lot of changes going on, but I've heard multiple people that I respect their opinions say that War Machine's in a really good state right now, and that they like where the game has gone, and that things have calmed down with all the rule changes along the way. Hopefully, we're able to get some feedback, and we want to be able to give every platform their due if things are going well within that game, and hopefully, be able to spread the love a little bit.
Yeah. So I think with that being said, we'll go ahead and switch over to our interview with Vince Kirkov, the slayer of Alex Bots, the torch bearer of the world, the purest of the alchemists, at least for now. So Chris, we suck at alchemists.
Sure.
We don't even own them.
No, we don't.
We've lost to them a few times.
Yeah.
So we got with us, you call him a professional alchemist. He is the owner of the torch on Longshanks. He is the Alex Bot Slayer, at least this one time. We got with us Vincent Kirkov. So Vince, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, how you doing?
Pretty good. We're like we said, we're happy to have you on because we definitely, if we tried to play a game with alchemists, we would suck.
Or give
definitely
advice
an
on how to
acquired
play
taste.
Yeah, so we just got a few things that we're going to do with you on the show. First thing is, let's go ahead and have you share your one rage quit story that you would like to share with us.
All right, so this is the last time that I personally rage quit a game. So growing up, me and my grandma used to play Scrabble together.
Okay.
And my grandma was very much a stickler of the rules, and we played actually by the letter of the rules. And I called it Liar's Scrabble. So if you don't know, in the actual game of Scrabble, how it works is if you can actually lay down anything you want. The way we always played it, because my grandma was like determined to teach me things, was that you'd lay your word down, you'd define your word, and then you'd have the other player would have the opportunity to challenge the word. So if you challenge it and you look it up in the dictionary, it's not a word, right? You pick up your tiles, your turn's over. If they're wrong, you get to go again. So essentially, you're just like gambling your turn.
Yeah, you're kind of like bluffing it out if it's not really a word.
Exactly. So my grandma lays down her tiles and she goes, Xvin, a wine connoisseur or enthusiast. I was like, all right, Grandma, that's a good word. Right? And then I play Smash. And before I even get the definition out, my grandma's like, challenge. And I was like, Grandma, you're not very good at this game. Smash is definitely a word. She's like, yeah, but you played it by making Xvin plural, and Xvin's not a word. And that to date is the closest I have ever come to flipping a table. Well, I would get points for Xvin and Smash, or Xvins and Smash. So both have to be words, but it didn't dawn on me that she had bluffed her.
Thanks a lot, Grandma.
So, I mean, is that still would that be a heated topic if you brought that up again?
I mean, I think I like to think that I have it behind me, and she'll gloat about it every once in a while.
She still brings it up at Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, so my dad's from a big family. My dad's the oldest of 6, and all those big family gatherings are always like you're bringing up the same handful of stories.
Yeah.
Like my dad put bubbles in the iron when he was like 9, and that still gets brought up.
Because, I mean, I tell you, I played a game with, this is probably 8 years ago. I played a game of spades with my sister, and she pulled some bullshit rule where she's like, it was some stupid house rule. And I'm like, it's like, who plays that way? She's like, it's a rule. I'm like, it's not a fucking rule. And we could bring this up today, and we would probably almost punch each other in the face. It's just, I don't know what it is. Card games especially get me really fired up. So I don't rage quit a lot in tabletop, but when it comes to a card game, I will flip my shit sometimes.
Does your grandma realize what a good gamer you are today? Does she have any basis of how good of a board game, let's call tabletop games board games, how good of a board game player you've become?
No, not really. Have I become a good board game player? I think she just knows that I'm just as competitive then as I am now.
Okay.
And I don't think she's aware of whether I'm talented or not. Maybe she just assumes that I am.
Because she'd probably take some credit for it.
Yeah, probably would.
Yeah, no, I mean, tell me about competing, bringing this back to kind of Guild Ball. I mean, you're competing in a highly competitive area. So, I mean, what's just a random day out of the week in your Chicago meta? I mean, you got some pretty big names up there.
Yeah, I mean, they're players just like anybody else, but the big thing is you just have to realize that steel sharpens steel. Yep. So it's just the more good players you have around, the easier it is to get good. And so we're really helpful in that regard. And Alex and Pat and Zach Gray are probably the 3 best players in our local meta, and they're all really strong. But there are some names that you guys haven't heard, Keith and Nick and the other Zach are all really good as well. And they just haven't been able to put up tournament results because it is very hard in the Midwest if any one of us is at a tournament to take it, right? And then we're wrestling for it over each other as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be cool because I know Alex and Pat are going to Spring Fling, and there's going to be other metas going up to that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all shakes out, when all these different metas from the East and Central of the United States kind of meet up.
Yeah, that was last year. That was my actual first taste of it because I went last year and I lost to Frank in the finals.
Nice.
In a really, really great, really tight game. Frank is another one of those guys I don't think gets enough of a like record. Like I think he went 36-0 on day one of WTC.
Yeah.
Like that guy is an absolute shark.
Yeah, I mean, no pun intended, since he plays the
Well,
fish, right?
Well, and he doesn't play shark.
He's a Corsair guy.
He's a ride or die Corsair. But yeah, like that tournament was awesome. Just like meeting all of the people. It was my first time meeting Jared. And I think me and Jared each scored 2 points that game. And then I clocked him for 10 or something. And then he apologized to me for it, for not giving me a good enough game. And it was my first time ever beating fish with alchemists.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet Jared McGraw. He's also coming down to our the old Jake's tournament in Greenville, and I'm excited to meet him because everything I've heard, he seems like a really good player and real fun guy to be around.
He's really good, and it's and just like the nicest guy in the world. Like where like all of us are a little bit in the Chicago Met are a little bit of jerks, but we're like nice about it being jerk. No, Jared's just a nice guy.
I think that especially when I like tonight, we were teaching new players kind of how to play, and I kind of use a lot of the big names sometimes, just kind of let them know that the people that are good right now aren't good just because they were born that way or they just conveniently are that good. People get good at Guild Ball by playing games and by playing really good opponents. So I mean, I think that's a good lesson just to see that like people like you, Alex, I mean Pat, you guys have put in a ton of games to get that good. And that's what you need to do if you want to, be good at a game like Guild Ball.
Absolutely.
All right, so we are talking about Alchemists, though. But before we get into that, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about Run the Length, which is kind of your YouTube baby that you've kind of created over the last year.
Yeah. So last year in January, I launched a YouTube channel focusing on Guild Ball because at the time there were a handful of people doing YouTube battle reports, but they were full-length games, often narrated while the game was going on. And this wasn't a thing I was interested in watching. Like, I get why people enjoy it, but I don't want to watch a feature-length movie that's a Guild Ball match.
Definitely.
I could play a game of Guild Ball in that time. I want to watch like a short, condensed 15 minute, 30-minute video. And so I just decided to do them myself. And so I do shortened match reports where I take a full match and I speed it up and I narrate every action that happens and then I interject my thoughts in it. And that's a YouTube series I call Run the Length. And then also on my YouTube channel, I do a handful of other things. Like I have Guild Ball Gotchas where we cover a lot of like the really big interactions in Guild Ball that are like really big surprises for people. Things like the Mallet Missile or the Pat Cat or like Hoist's interactions with things and other like random Guild Ball related things. The YouTube channel is just named after me. It's just Vincent Kirkov. And so if you look up that or Run the Length, or I'm sure if you search Guild Ball, it'll be one of the top hits.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend, especially your Guild Ball gotchas, I would recommend that for new players because there are tricks like the Mallet Missile and the Pat Cat where it's like if they're not expecting, it's going to be definitely a gotcha, which is why it's named that. So I really enjoyed that part of your channel for sure.
Yeah, those are some of the ones I'm most proud about. Unfortunately, they don't do as well as Run the Length, and I'm still searching for that off-week video that's easier to do. Because Run the Length takes me like 3 weeks out of the month to do.
Yeah.
And then I throw together a second video in a week. And like I can do that with Guild Ball Gotchas because the difficulty of it is mostly just writing it. The goal of that is that I want my channel to be like a gateway for medium players to high-level play.
Yeah,
right. So that way,
that's a great goal. Just because, I mean, that's the majority of Guild Ball players, right? It's just kind of like this middle group, and then you have the high end and low end.
And I'm very fortunate in that I can play these games against some of the best players in the world.
Yeah, I mean, the last game I saw, you were playing one of the guys from Longshanks, right?
I was playing the Longshanks. So Longshanks is actually just one guy.
Yeah.
Like that website's so big and so well done that it's hard to believe it's just one guy.
Definitely.
And Sam's one of our local players, and so it was like, and he just got into Masons, was super excited about it, and I wanted to talk about his website, and having him on was just a way to do it. And he's one of the few players in the scene that I haven't put on the cast before.
So with that being said, let's start with what drew you to the Alchemist. What do you like about the guild? What's something that you really enjoy just with the guild in general? So
I actually ended up in Alchemists kind of on a fluke. Me and my buddy Nick, we were at War Machine Weekend and they were having a Guild Ball tournament. in like the basement of War Machine Weekend.
Yeah, in the corner.
Yeah. And it was actually like, it was physically downstairs. It was like, and so we went and got a demo game while just hammered and decided that we loved it. And then me, Nick, and our buddy Tony, who we were with, all like picked out the team we were going to do, and we're waiting in line to buy Guild Ball stuff that day, and then realized that all three of us had picked Masons based on like the honor sculpt, like the honor brick and mallet sculpts. Like we were just like, these are great. Let's play Masons. And I was like, oh, I can't do like the true blue good guys if everyone's playing true blue good guys.
Yeah.
Right. So I audible to the pose I liked second best, which was Midas's 3-point stance.
A lot of people don't like that model, but I love kind of like the metallic fist, and his fist going in the ground.
It's like a superhero landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It is exactly the superior landing. I really liked it. I painted him kind of like Colossus, where like half of his face is taken up by the gold.
Nice.
So I really loved that mini. I painted the heck out of him. And then we started to play in season 2. And I hated alchemists. They were like not what was sold to me. They were not like this condition throwing team. They were like this goofy kind of striker team. Like you could throw the conditions, but really if you wanted to be competitive, you needed to take like all Union and Midas and Vitriol.
I would say, wasn't Midas like this weird actually killy captain?
Yeah, because he could heroic for +1 damage, so he just had 2 damage on 1.
Yeah.
And then he could hold 7.
And it
So
wasn't
you just go
just
14.
that. It was the way he could replicate abilities and get a guild ball on 1. And so
Yeah.
he could like take somebody, he could take Gutter's Scything Blow. I learned this lesson the hard way in a tournament in the final. I had never played against the Alchemists before, and this was pretty early on. I'd only been playing Guild Ball for a month or 2. Back then, he would come and steal a character play, and so he stole Gutter's Scything Blow, and then he came up in the middle of all of my Butcher's models, and just with all of that influence, just Scything Blowed on 1 success repeatedly.
Momentously.
Yeah, momentously, right? And so I was just like, so the next day we actually played another tournament, and the same guy was in that tournament. I left Gutter off the table, and I was just, I looked at the guy, really nice guy, his name's Darren. He's actually one of the funnest guys I've ever played with. I looked at him, and he kind of smiled when I didn't take Gutter, and I told him that will not happen again.
So where did you start liking Alchemist, kind of like enjoying them as they play?
So it was like late season. So like season 2, I had like given up on Alchemists. We did the big league, which was fun. And I just like was not having fun. I didn't enjoy playing Midas. And then Smoke came out, and Smoke was like what I was sold on Alchemists. She was a condition-based captain that like could put the conditions on everybody. And this was back in the days before home crowd. So there was, if I was going first, you weren't shaking those conditions.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't get to me, there was no way to get rid of the conditions. So I just like would hang back and play like the crazy threat Vitriol to go get the ball and slam one in, and then get Smoke's free goal from 20 inches, and then just like run away from you for the entire game. And I was having a blast. And then like I kind of got sour towards the end of season 2 because of how strong Obulus and Filet were.
Yeah, we were talking to, I think it was Lance from Muson Minis, and he was saying he saw one of the finals tables, and it was like Obulus, Filet, and he told us how like monotonous it was at the end of season 2.
Yeah, American. So there was Filet. There were a couple Filet players in Britain, but U.S. national champs top 4 were all Obulus.
Yeah,
they were like all Obulus, like the same list too. And then like I get how that happened. Obulus was incredibly hard to play until like we kind of figured it out.
Yeah,
and then he had just an insane amount of control. And then they nerfed him back down. And he ate so many nerfs into season 3, and he's still like the better captain in that faction.
Yeah. So I mean, looking at season 3, you get to enjoy kind of this superstar Midas, and then they get nerfed. So what was your reaction?
So the Alchemist and Midas nerf, I was actually super okay with.
As a Smoke player, probably, right?
Well, at the time I was like, Midas was so strong. I was actively trying to become as like good as possible. And then and I'm playing in the most competitive meta, so if I can't really like play the funsies lists because I'm not as good as them yet.
Yeah.
And so I was playing Midas into everything except I was playing Smoke into Masons, and everybody thought I was crazy, right? And then you look at it now, and it's like one of the worst like matchup win rates. It's like 30% versus Smoke or something.
Yeah.
So I was playing a ton of that, and then the nerfs came down, and I thought the Midas nerfs were fine. I was a little bit sad to see the armor on the feet on the heroic go.
Yeah.
Largely because of how I painted him and like how I felt like the fluff went with him. I would have liked it to be pick one or the other. But all of the nerfs were like super justified. I thought it put Midas in a great spot. And the Harry stuff, understandable because he was everywhere. Like I was so sick of playing against Harry.
Yeah,
Harry was in every list that
annoying.
could take him. Yeah, he was just on every team.
Because I even had him on my Brewers team. He was just good.
I think he held Brewers together at the time.
Yeah.
I think Brewers were like one of the ones hurt the most by it. Probably right after Alchemists. And then, but the Vitriol changes made it so the Midas list kind of wasn't that viable anymore.
So I want to talk about that Vitriol change a little bit, because I didn't have a lot of experience with the Alchemists, and I hadn't lost to the Alchemists in a long time in Season 3, and finally I played an Alchemist player that brought Vitriol and started doing all sorts of damage to me in addition to having the crazy goal threat. I actually almost picked up the Alchemists, and I'm happy I didn't because they caught the nerf like the weekend I was making the decision to get them or not. But I was actually going to pick up the Alchemists for that model. Like, I thought that, at least as far as a non-captain model, that it was a very OP model. Would you agree with that assessment of that specific version?
So I didn't think she was as bad as everybody thought she was after they changed her from Season 2 to Season 3. After the extra damage went to once per turn and in cover, I thought she was okay. She didn't do damage momentously. She was just one of the best strikers in the game. She was on par with Mist. Like, it was a staple level model. And I was probably okay with them taking her down a little bit, but they nerfed her in 3 separate ways that were all really tough. Like the change to losing the speed buff from being in cover to having the condition dodge thing.
Yeah, that's weird.
Which is like, it's fairly comparable. It just makes it much harder to play, which I'm fine with. Like if you wanted to make her a higher skill cap model, like, and less autopilot, I'm in. That's fine. And even like moving her 2 damage to 3, I'm like, okay, she's a striker. She's not meant to do damage. Right? And then she also lost the bonus damage and she lost 2 hit points.
So a lot of people were asking us, Vince, how you use Crucible. So how do you best use her in your Alchemist lineup?
So yeah, Crucible was actually on my competitive 10 list before the Midas nerf. And I played her in 3 matchups in the flex slot. And the other 2 flex players, in my opinion, are Calculus and Compound that move in and out based on matchup. I played her in Engineers, Morticians, and Hunters, kind of abusing them as low momentum teams. I used her as a pure battery. She never received more than 1 influence for an occasional either trying to generate 1 extra momentum in a spot where I couldn't, but usually just to put up Nimble if I was worried about her dying. And she mostly just follows Cat around and applies her aura to them, making it difficult for people to spend their momentum. And then typically once per turn, or once per game, there will be a moment where her aura is just backbreaking for the opponent. I remember at Adepticon last year, I was playing against Bill Boyson, and I was able to kill Casket, which Alchemists should never do. Like, Tough Hide Reanimate is a nightmare for us. But I was able to do it because he couldn't stand or heal him after my first activation because he had only 1 momentum, and he was in the Crucible Aura on fire. Also, her ability to just jog 10 effectively when she can like just jog 6, follow Cat around, and people are always on fire near Cat. So she gets the extra 4 dodge at the end of her activation. Really lets you put that aura wherever you want it. If Midas sees another player, like kind of get a buff, you'll see her come back into the competitive 10. But right now she's not in mine because I don't play Midas in any of those matchups.
A lot of those same listeners also asked about Venin. So how do you best use Venom, or can you use Venom in a list?
So, Venom suffers from being just kind of like the worst one of our players. And I love Venom's mini. I really want to play Venom. I have put him on the table a ton, and he just underperforms constantly. And that's for a couple reasons. Mainly, he has no clearly defined role of like what he wants to do. He wants to activate early so he can put up his armor. He wants to activate late so he can use his heroic. And he doesn't particularly do anything that scores points well. He doesn't fight. His TAC 5, his 2 damage isn't until 3, and it's unmomentous. He just, like the best thing about him is that he's got a momentous tackle and dodge on 2. That just makes him kind of a striker, I guess, but he doesn't have reach, so he can just get it tackled back. He has no way to protect the ball, like close control or sturdy or anything along those lines. He just doesn't make my 10. He's a 2/8. The 8 is the 2 is less of a problem than the 8, or the 8 is the better part of that because it allows him to reach places. But unless you're bonus timing, like he's gonna be like probably one die kicking everywhere. Sorry. Also, Sack Puppet might be one of the worst character plays in the entire game because it deals 1 damage to himself to probably stop 1 damage to himself. But fun fact, if you hardcast it, it technically triggers Smoke's aura because it is a character play that does damage. It just does it to yourself.
So can you explain for new players how to use Vet Cat? Because I feel like they misuse him and get too aggressive with him sometimes, and that can lead to a lot of serious problems with Vet Catalyst. So how do you best use him, and what are some tricks that you use with Catalyst?
So it's my choice between Cat or Vet Cat is entirely based on Captain. I feel that Vet Cat works very, very well with Smoke with how well she's able to condition. Midas doesn't do that as well, and if you're attacking something with Vet Cat and it's not conditioned, there's probably a better way you could have spent that influence, or you shouldn't have like Vet Cat. And Vet Cat's actually like kind of a bad model. Like the fact that he takes 4 damage every activation, and he takes it after his activation ends, so it's unhealable, is like, it's just like a terrible rule, and it makes his 29 hit points like really misleading. And he just doesn't have the damage out. Yeah, he just doesn't have the damage output that like Cat 1 does. But what he does is very specific to my Smoke list, where he disappears after he kills someone, preventing the opponent from like farming momentum off him and being able to clear the conditions and undo everything that Smoke did. Catalyst 1 is like the best control piece and best beater in our faction, right? 2 damage, knockdown, and fire on 3 for an 8-tack model is just absolutely ridiculous. The damage and pushes he has makes him very, very strong at controlling where the opponents are. The issue is he's 1-inch melee and can be controlled by strong knockdown and push pieces that have reach.
So can you explain for new players how to use Vet Cat? Because I feel like they misuse him and get too aggressive with him sometimes, and that can lead to a lot of serious problems with Vet Catalyst. So how do you best use him, and what are some tricks that you use with Catalyst?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. If you ever watch like my Smoke list plays, I deploy him like 4 to 5 inches behind where I deploy the rest of my team when I play him in my Smoke list, and that's because I cannot let you get a hold of him because my whole game plan will fall apart. And part of him, as well as to a handful of other things, is part of what makes that Smoke list so fragile. And you absolutely just need to counterpunch with him. Like when they finally get a model into you, hopefully it's blind, and then hopefully it's hitting one of your 4/1 models. Because even though like Calculus and Mercury don't get a lot of credit, they're actually really durable. Outside of a captain with a damage buff on them, almost nothing can one round. Yeah, it's 4/1, and then it's just 15 boxes. Just the sheer amount of influence you would need. Like, you need to be doing, like, if you have only 4 influence, like, each attack needs to do, like, 4 damage. And then you have a turn to react.
So if you can't take somebody out with Witness Me with Vet Catalyst, is that, like, your worst nightmare? Like, you're just, like, terrible situation?
Yeah, it's an enormous disaster. Like, just like, them being able to mine the momentum off of him, and then if they can actually, that's not the disaster, it's if they can actually use it. If they can use it to clear and heal their players, a lot of my work gets undone. And you need to be constantly like milking those conditions for damage for that smoke list to get to its 3 takeouts.
So can you explain for the listeners, when do you take Midas and when do you take Smoke? Which matchups are best for which captain? Because a lot of people are wondering that on Facebook and Twitter.
So right now I play Midas in only 2 matchups. I play him against Farmers, and I play him against Union. And the one thing they have in common that makes me do that is they both have Grace. Grace is an absolutely huge problem for alchemists. The ability that she can just pick up one of my conditions, and keep in mind we have only 2 condition rings in the faction, so she can deny me fire or she can deny me poison. And this was fairly playable back when I had Harry in my 10 instead of Decimate, because she couldn't take away fire. I would always have fire, but instead she would take away poison. It would take a very long time for people to die. But now that I've switched to Decimate to make my fish matchup better, the matchup's almost unplayable. Like, the second I drop that ring, she will then activate, quickfoot someone, and pick the ring up. And so, without access to fire, I can't control the speed, and people's threat ranges, they just get to play their normal threat ranges. So I play Midas into those ones, and you don't drop Grace into Midas, because I show you my captain before you have to pick Grace. And then, like, both of those teams that can play her have a captain that's very, very deadly, especially when they're quickfoot. So it's not only not only that they're denying me -2 speed, she's also giving out +2 speed somewhere. So it's like a 4 speed swing of what I like to play against and what Grace is.
So Vince, do you never use Smoke into a Grace matchup? Is it really that bad where you don't want to play that matchup?
Yeah, absolutely. Smoke is just like hosed so badly by Grace. You should absolutely play Grace if you can. And she's actually not that bad of a piece in either of those lists. Thresher also likes to take Grace in the mirror, because your Thresher becomes faster than theirs. And that's a big, big deal for him. And then I'm not sure if Rage likes to play her anywhere else, but just the ability of Union not having to play against that smoke list is a huge boon for them.
So a question we actually had on Facebook was, they asked, how does an alchemist player beat Shark? Because I think that player is having problems with Shark when they're playing their alchemists.
So the thing is, I've been an alchemist player my entire time playing Guild Ball, and very rare. I've only had Shark dropped into me a handful of times. Because Corsair was largely thought to be, he's just so strong against Midas with the close control, the rough seas, and then he's also able to just like control Catalyst 1 very, very well by knocking him down and keeping him at reach. And so like that's a huge problem, and you'd think he'd be good against the smoke list because he can pull people in. But if you stand behind a barrier, you can kind of get around that, or a barrier, or an obstacle, or just block line of sight with a forest. So not a lot of people have like dropped Shark into me, but Shark can be beaten the same way kind of by everyone. Like, it's a threat range game. You need to keep that ball as dead as possible. It's really helpful in Smoke because Smoke doesn't want to play around with the ball at all. So you keep it, if Shark ever has to buy Tidal Surge, it's the apocalypse for him. So put him in situations where he has to do that. If you have to put the ball on someone, put it on your mascot. Because that will allow, that forces them to give you Siren. Because the mascots only have 4-inch kicks. It's unlikely that she'll be able to get farther than 6 inches. Or closer than 6 inches away from the mascot to pull it if you're doing your thing right. And then you have a 10 hit point model that you can just witness me really, really easily.
Putting the ball on a mascot's a really good idea. I'm going to have to try that next time I play a Siren.
Yeah, and the reason you want to do that is so that if the kick is successful, because we have a lot of good kicks in that list, I think like our lowest is a 3 kick that's not a mascot, is then she can't take it and dodge away back to safety and get out of Catalyst's threat range.
So you've been playing Alchemist for a really, really long time. Is there another guild that you're looking to branch out into and to get more experience with this next upcoming year?
So, absolutely. I've been looking for another faction to play, largely for the channel, because I think people are tired of seeing me play alchemists all the time, and I like to fancy myself as one of the best battle report YouTubes out there. And if it's just alchemists all the time, like, that's all well and good, but it puts me at a pretty narrow cross section. So I'm going to expand out from there. I own two other teams that I plan to actually play. I own Union, because I'm kind of obsessed with Blackheart. I just think Blackheart running around, Johnny Depping all over the place is like super fun, even if he's not as competitive as Rage. And then I was drawn to Farmers. Farmers are very much the type of way I like to play games. I like to play high resource pools, which them being able to make extra influence and go up to like 18 influence, I find really, really fun. And then they also play, yeah, it is. I've actually played the Plowman list, and it's actually not as bad as people think it is. He plays kind of like Harry does right now. And then they also have this like crippling control style that you can do. Alex calls it Grange's puzzle box. And I find executing that really interesting, and I'm really bad at it right now. It's just like, it's mechanically, there's a lot of stuff to remember. Like, you have to make sure you drop all 3 harvest markers every turn. You have to keep the models that are in danger within 4 inches of Fallow's rock and a hard place aura, but also make sure that Fallow's not killable. And then you have the counter charge to set up, and there's just like a lot of moving parts. And every time I play it, I can point to like 5 different ways I could have played it better. So I'm really excited to be playing some Farmers as well. And look out for new factions coming to run the length soon.
So are you a little worried about losing your guild purist on Longshanks? Because I know you've had that for a while, and it's been like a source of pride for you.
It does a little bit, mostly because I'm the highest guild purist right now. But ultimately, I wanted to put alchemists down, having finally won a tournament with them, and like playing some faction like against the guys at the at our Tuesday night meetups and whatnot. That's one thing, but like I have to take it to a tournament. I have to compete with it for it to actually be a guild that I play. So I am going to be putting that down, and it does pain me. I like being best in the world at something.
So one question we want to make sure we ask you, Vince, is what is your tournament 10 that you do take with Alchemists, just so all of our listeners who are trying to be competitive with them can kind of maybe get an idea of a good, solid 10 lineup?
So as it sits right now, I play Midas, Smoke, Flask, Calculus, Compound, both Catalysts, Mercury, and Vitriol. And then my Union pick right now is Decimate, although I don't think Harry the Hat is terrible either. And essentially, the issue is that, so I already talked about why I think that Crucible just barely falls out, and that I think Venom is just kind of trash and doesn't really have a spot right now. But the mascots thing, I think, can go either way. I think most players are more comfortable playing Nausea than Flask. I play Flask to, because he brings a little bit of influence efficiency for Smoke, so Smoke has a cloud to jump back to safety. Otherwise, she'd have to spend 1 to buy it. So in her list, it's like he brings 2 influence if you position Flask correctly. And then nobody wants to spend the amount that it takes to kill him unless he's going to explode on your team. So he's a little bit of a liability, but I really like Flask. But Nausea is also an incredible mascot. Like, they're 2 of the best Sikkim targets in the entire game. My Flask Sikkim record is 30 damage. And, yeah, but, like, Nasha's no slouch either. Like, being able to, like, Sikkim, like, surprise Sikkim a Rage 1 or a Boar, who effectively then just can't do anything because they're a Berserk 1 influence model that has to spend 2 for their first attack and they're engaged. So they don't get their Furious either. Like, that's really, really dirty.
I also really like your Decimate pick in that, just because Second Wind would really seem like it would help your list out a ton, especially your Smoke list.
Yeah, Second Wind Blind is super, super good. Like, being able to walk up, blind someone who's 8 inches away, and then be able to walk another 4 back and be like, yeah, that 5 influence you put there is just never going anywhere.
So before we let you go, Vince, just share with us anything you want to plug or any information that you want to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a member of the Strictly the Worst Guild Ball podcast. Make sure you check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. And this Friday, we have a very big announcement that I can't talk about, but if you're into Guild Ball, you're going to want to tune in. It's really cool. I'm super excited about it. Second, I run a YouTube channel. It's Vincent Kirchhoff, my name. And or you can just search Run the Length, which is my main series there. Definitely go check that out. YouTube just changed how their partnership program works, and I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can keep all the cool tools I've been using for the last year. And definitely come check out Adepticon and then check out if you're looking to like play a personal game against me, I will be at both Bourbon Trail and Adepticon this year. All other tournaments kind of to be determined.
Well, I know we're planning on going to SteamCon this year, wherever it is. So hopefully if you go to SteamCon US, Vince, we'll be able to meet up with you and we'll go ahead and try to get some games with you because that definitely sounds like a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend Run the Length for anybody, including new players who want to up their game, because you really do help people learn new strategies and how to think about when it comes to competitive gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. I want my channel to be this kind of like gateway to go from a medium ability player who like knows the core rules of Guild Ball, and then how do I progress my play once I'm there? How do I become a good tournament player? That's what I hope my channel does.
Well, once again, Vince, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing all your Alchemist information with us. You're definitely one of the more respected Alchemist players in the country, if not the world. So thanks again for coming on, and just make sure when you're out next time playing games that you roll some dice and throw some salt for us.
All right, sounds good.